الأمين العام قلت من هو؟
أنت من عمان ولا من؟
أنا من أصلي من يافا. أنا أقول دراسة فلسطين.
Where these rockets succeeding? You're the only one.
Okay.
First of all, our deepest condolences on the death of U.S. servicemen during the exercise in Pabrade in Lithuania. Our thoughts and prayers are with their families, with their loved ones, with their colleagues, servicemen, and all the American nation. We cherish transatlantic bond. We cherish the presence of United States troops in Lithuania, and we look forward to continue in the same spirit of the really good allies as we are. Today, this day is the one when we have to talk about our security as the absolute top priority. Not only general security, but the very hard security, about the defense. Because without spending more on defense, without increasing our postures, without increasing defense, there will be no stability and prosperity for our economies and for our countries. Increasing defense and spending more on defense meaning we have to invest more. Invest more, it means that the current levels of our defense expenditure are too low to achieve the results where we have to be. So for the Hague summit, we have to at least double our baseline defense spending, going from 2% up to 4%. For Europe, it means that we also have to double our spending to be in a position where we have the capabilities that are needed from us for the NATO to be a strong military alliance. On our side, from Lithuania's side, we do a lot. In the last 10 years, we increased our spending 10 times. So you add 10 to the number that we are spending. This year, we will be number 2 in NATO, that was 4%. Next year, we go beyond 5%, 5.25. And this is our line and direction for the defense spending up to 2030, for the next 5 years. We are building this heavy division in our armed forces. We're spending a lot of money into the weaponry that we procure also from the United States. We're looking forward to continue that. And we also spend billions on the state-of-the-art host nation support and facilities in Lithuania for our allies to be stationed there. On Ukraine, we have to admit that there is only one aggressor in this situation. This is Russia. Russia is a long-term direct military threat to all NATO and to Ukraine. And for the Ukraine, we need the just and long-lasting peace. And this is only one country that doesn't want that. That's Russia. They don't want peace. They want Ukraine. They want to subjugate Ukraine and the other neighbors. And this is the only one language that Russia understands. That's strength. And we have to translate everything that we say each day into the language of strength, and to show that we are with Ukraine, that Ukraine is a strong country and can deter at least conventionally, the Russian forces in the foreseeable future. We need to support Ukraine more, and we have to keep the Euro-Atlantic aspiration of Ukraine on the table, because this is the shortest and the most straightforward option for them to increase the security.
We hear from signal leaks from the US administration and also some disrespectful comments about European allies. How trustworthy are the United States still as an ally, in your opinion?
Transatlantic bond is an absolute bedrock for the NATO, for the alliance. We rely on the United States' presence in Europe, and also on extended nuclear deterrence of United States. So we have to work in the spirit of allies and to strengthen this relation. And there are a lot of means where we have the constructive dialogue, where we have the constructive agenda, and we have to continue it within the NATO and also within the EU and other formats. Thank you.
morning. We're looking very much forward, good morning to all of you, we're looking very much forward to this foreign ministers meeting. It will be the first for Marco Rubio to attend, so we will welcome him. And we will discuss, of course, a lot of things, but particularly, of course, focusing on ramping up defense spending. And here, great things are happening. Over the last couple of months, we literally see hundreds of billions of euros/dollars rolling in. Look at what the Germans have announced, other Europeans have announced, many other countries have announced. So this is probably the biggest increase in defense spending here on the European side of NATO since the end of the Cold War. But we still need more, so that will be discussed. And then, of course, defense industrial production. That will be important. We have many guests participating over the next 2 days, including our partners from the Indo-Pacific. With them, Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, we will discuss how to deepen that relationship. Very much focusing on another big subject these 2 days, which is the defense industrial production, how to get the production up. And here we can do more, I strongly believe, with our partners of the IP4, of the Indo-Pacific 4, so with the Japanese, the Koreans, the Australians, and the people from New Zealand. Of course, we also have the Ukrainian Foreign Minister here. We have Kaja Kallas here, the European High Representative. So we have a whole bunch of people, good talks to attend to. And I think all of these discussions, there will be a common thread, which is Ukraine, how to keep Ukraine in the fight, how to make sure that we keep on delivering what is necessary for Ukraine to sustain in the fight, including the military aid to Ukraine. So really a packed program of 2 days, looking forward to it. And of course, we will meet each other at the end tomorrow for the closing presser. But maybe you have some questions now. I'm open to answer them. Sir.
When are we going to open the office in Jordan?
It will be soon, but I don't have a date now.
To what extent do you think NATO should trigger Article 5 if Russia does an hybrid attack on a NATO ally?
Well, this is not on the agenda for these 2 days. Anna.
We saw leaks from a signal chat of the US administration, and in there some disrespectful comments about European allies. Why are the United States still a trustworthy ally?
Absolutely they are. You've seen what President Trump himself said about Article 5, about NATO, his full commitment. We know that they have an expectation. The expectation is for the Europeans and the Canadians to spend more. And that is happening as we talk. I mean, as I said, this is probably the biggest increase in defense spending since the Berlin Wall came down in 1989. But still we need to do more. So this will be on the agenda today. So there is a clear commitment by the US, a clear expectation that we will equalize the spending here on the European side of NATO with what they are doing. Because of the Russian threat, because of the build-up in China, look what they are doing with their nuclear arms, and of course Iran and North Korea.
European allies believe.
What sort of reception do you think Secretary Rubio is going to get today, though, after the President's announcement on tariffs last night?
I think the reception will be very positive. This is not a meeting about, of course, the economic issues and subjects. It will be. We are really focused. The focus here of all 32 is how to defend NATO territory against the Russians, our long-term threat, which will be there even after, I hope, there will be a deal on Ukraine. The Russian threat will be there for many years to come. We are seeing what China is doing. We're seeing how these two theaters, the Indo-Pacific and the Euro-Atlantic, are getting more and more connected by the fact that the Russians are working together with the North Koreans, with the Chinese, with the mullahs in Iran. So we have to look at all these theaters in conjunction, and that will be our focus.
Press, European allies believe that...
Again, could you start again?
European allies believe that the United States is going to draw down here in terms of troops, in terms of equipment to address its security priorities elsewhere. They want to know how much, they want to know how fast. How important is it to get a clear message today from Marco Rubio on that and on the threat that Russia poses to this alliance, because there have been unclear or perhaps no messages at all coming from the White House?
But this is not new. For many years, the Americans have told us, and they started 15 years ago, that they want to pivot more towards Asia, that there are issues in the Indo-Pacific the Americans have to attend to. That's one. Second, they have for many years told the Europeans, you have to spend more. And this really started to happen after Trump came into office in 2016, 2017. By now, now we are spending more on this side of the Atlantic, 700 billion in aggregate, since he came in 2016, 2017. So these issues are not new. There are no plans for them to all of a sudden draw down their presence here in Europe, as I said yesterday. But we know that for America, being the superpower they have to attend to more theaters than one. It's only logical that you have that debate, and we are having that debate for many years.
It's not important for the allies or also for EU defense plans within NATO to know to what extent and in which ways the US may be reducing their role in Europe. So
we do everything in the alliance in the spirit of no surprises, of working together, of being strong allies, of being laser focused on the main threat, which is Russia, and the upcoming issues around China, North Korea, Iran. That's what we are working on. And that means that when, which is over years the case, the Americans want to pivot more towards Asia, that obviously we will do that in a very coordinated manner.
Between Russia and Ukraine, do you think will be happen or just talk?
Well, again, the good news is that President Trump broke the deadlock on Ukraine, has started the dialogue with the Ukrainians and the Russians. We fully support this. I personally gave my commitment, whatever we can do, we will help. And the Americans have been absolutely clear that a deal, be it a ceasefire deal or a full deal on Ukraine, has to be lasting, has to be enduring, and that we have to make sure that Putin will never ever try again to capture 1 square kilometer or 1 square mile of Ukraine in the future.
From your point of view, this partial ceasefire, does it work or it's partially work from your perspective?
Let me be clear. The Americans have broken a deadlock. They are working with the Russians and the Ukrainians to get to a peace deal, intermediate to a ceasefire. This is what the Americans are working for day and night. And I think it is very positive that since Trump came in, the second time, President Trump in January, that he has been working on this with his team. I do not want to comment on every intermediate step other than that I very much welcome what he is doing, that we want to support those efforts, that we agree with his red lines that there should be an enduring and lasting peace for Ukraine.
Rubio came to Brussels this morning with a 5% threshold. How would that be possible in the real world, and will there be negotiations?
Well, as you know, in NATO, including the US part, Canadians, the European members of allies in NATO, we are working on a process which will define the gaps we have to get to the targets. This is the defense, the NATO defense planning process. And we will come to conclusions in May, June, and hopefully before the summit in The Hague. From there, we will assess, given those gaps, given the targets and given the gaps, what we need to do more of. And as I said before, it's my assumption that what we need to spend in the Canadians and the Europeans to get there will be north of 3%. When you look at the emerging outcomes of this whole process. And of course, that is a content-driven process that based on those targets, based on the gaps emerging from that, we will have a clear discussion on what we need to spend more on. But in the meantime, and I think this is the great news, that the last couple of months, we see this, again, biggest increase in defense spending since the end of the Cold War in the European part of NATO. And that is extremely positive and necessary because we have to defend ourselves against the long-term threat the Russians pose.
Any discussion about Western Balkans? Will there be any discussion?
It's not on the agenda explicitly, but I think it might be raised by allies. And of course, it's one of the issues we are very much focusing on generally. So as you know, I've been to Sarajevo and to Pristina recently. I had discussions on the phone and here in Brussels with the president of Serbia. So we're really very much involved as NATO to make sure the Western Balkans stay stable, stay safe, together with our 5 allies. Montenegro, North Macedonia, Slovenia, Croatia and Albania. So collectively we navigate the Western Balkans, making sure that stability is there to stay. I think we have to go to the last 2 questions. Sir.
Yeah. Why is Greenland not on the agenda today, having one allied country feeling pressure from another that threatens to take its territory?
I would not be surprised if the Arctic would be raised today by allies. And this is an issue, and the Arctic, of course, is not only Denmark, the King of Denmark, which, of course, has Greenland as part of its kingdom. This is also Iceland, it's Canada, it's the US, it is Norway, Finland, Sweden. So we have 7 allies which are present in the Arctic. We know that the Chinese are opening sea lanes. We know that the Russians are rearming there. We know, and as I said yesterday, it seems to be a detail, but it is an important detail. It's not trivial, and that is the issue of icebreakers. So more and more, the 7 Arctic countries are working together to make sure we keep that part of the world safe. And NATO is more and more involved. So the final question, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Do we have a common definition on what is included in defense spending? And should that be discussed again?
No, I don't think so. We have a clear definition on what defense spending is. What we do not want is to water that down. So the 2%, or whatever the new target will be, NATO is very clear with the allies, and I know this from my previous role. You try sometimes to negotiate, hey, should this not be seen as defense spending? And I know that the guys and the women working here are very harsh with allies to tell them this should be part of it, this should not be part of it. So we are very clear on that. Thank you so much, and I look forward to see you tomorrow at the end of all the meetings. Take care.
was here at 9:50.
No stress.
Are you okay?
Yeah, when I ride with my motorbike, it's not possible to take my phone.
No problem.
Pretty busy over there. Yeah, so that's good.
We will see now.
Jawel. Even kijken.
Hey.
Hey. Gehaald?
Ja, goed.
Ik ben op tijd.
Ja. Als ik dus die andere pas heb, mag ik in een vast werken. Ja. Oh ja. Ik heb gisteren wel tegen die gesproken, stond gisteren aan de balie. Oh, ben jij dat? Ja, ik ben gebeld. En ja, ik denk. Ja, kort haar. Nee, dit is een jongen die heeft gezegd gebeld en we komen erop terug. Maar dat is een probleem, ze komen nooit ergens op terug. Ja. Alexander.
Precies wel weg nu. Snap je het niet?
So I'm very happy that Secretary Rubio has a first visit to NATO. I just met him last week in DC, so I'm very happy to welcome Rubio as well here. The most important is that we're now going to decide to increase the spendings from the European side into defense. Estonian government decided a month ago that we are going to increase our spendings for defense from the next year up to 5% least. We probably do more because we are following the regional defense plans we adopted already during the Vilnius NATO summit. So I do expect that this discussion today as well, and then the summit in The Hague will be decisive, at least 3.5% of GDP for everybody. So I'm happy I see as well many European governments deciding to increase the defense spendings. So it is very crucial because Russia will remain a threat, and President Trump's message has been very clear, not now only, but even during the first period of when he was in office. And also many other US presidents have said that Europe needs to invest more, and we understand that this is reality, and we do finally that. Of course, Estonia would have been more happy that these tying on decisions would have come like 10 years ago. But finally we are there, and it's very important. And of course, the second topic is Ukraine. We need to continue to support Ukraine on military level, also sanctions. I'm happy there is a draft in US as well, which is dealing in Senate, which is tightening the new sanctions for Russia as well, because unfortunately we don't see that Russia is able and Putin wants to have any kind of ceasefire, and of course he doesn't want any kind of peace, so we need to push Russia heavily. And at the same time we need to give military support to Ukraine, that Ukraine can fight for our freedom and for their own freedom. So thank you very much.
We have recently seen some leaks from signal chat groups from the US administration with some disrespectful comments about European allies. Why are the United States still a reliable ally?
We have many comments. This is rhetoric, and we're living in a new era in the meaning of diplomacy. But the most important is to follow the facts and follow the behavior in real life. So I'm pretty sure, after meeting as well Secretary Rubio last week in DC, that the US is committed to Baltic states, US is committed to NATO. But as I mentioned as well, we need to do our part. So let's not following every kind of comments, but let's do our job. And most important job is to ensure that Europe is able to defend. Thank you.
Minister, how important is it for your country, but also for NATO's defense plans, to get to know exactly from Secretary Rubio in which ways and to what extent the US may be reducing its role in Europe?
I'm pretty sure that transatlantic bond is very strong. So it's in interest of Europe and also in US that NATO is a strong alliance. So we are going to discuss European part. So how much more we can invest to our defense. And it is not because of President Trump. It's because of us. We see what Russia is doing right now and has done already more than 3 years in Ukraine. And we see as well that there is no willingness from Putin to have any kind of peace. So Russia will remain a threat. And we need to take seriously as well the Trump administration, that they have said very clearly that Europe must invest more heavily, and happily we see these marks that different governments are doing that.
But you don't know if they are going to reduce troops, right, in Europe?
We have troops, US troops in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland. We have asked more troops to our region because US troops are peacekeeping troops. I mean, in real life, not as a United Nations, but they are keeping the peace. And we are ready to double our investments to welcome these troops. So, thank you.
Yeah. Minister, we see a dramatic backslide in Georgia this week, already adopted the repressive legislation. So what's your opinion, what's your estimation of current situation?
Yeah, Estonia has put tens and tens of different persons under the personal sanctions, the national sanctions as well, Ivanishvili and the Prime Minister. And also we are calling the European Union to start the process of taking down the visa liberation to start this. Yeah, let's see. Okay.
You think that can be on the table now?
Yeah, it can be on the table. It needs 15 member states to start this process, to screen and also ask the regime that they need to change the behavior. So, thank you very much.
I just come back from Cambodia, so.
Herr Bettel,
Die USA kommen jetzt wieder hierher mit mehr Forderungen an Europa, mehr zu tun. Muss Europa jetzt eigentlich alles tun, was die USA sagen, um die USA in der NATO und damit die Abschreckung aufrechtzuerhalten?
Also es sind viele verschiedene Messagen, die wir bekommen. Ich glaube, heute Morgen wird es mal zuerst ein Moment der Wahrheit sein. Was will Amerika überhaupt noch mit Europa zu tun haben? Sollen wir weiter zusammenarbeiten? Das ist mein Wunsch. Auch wenn es ein bisschen komplizierter ist, auf jeden Fall, dass wir gemeinsam sehen, dass wir gemeinsamen Feind haben, das ist Russland. Und Amerika soll nicht Europa als Feind sehen. Wir waren Partner, wir sind Partner und wir sollen auch Partner bleiben. Und wir haben nichts, also Amerika entscheidet nicht, was Europa zu tun hat, aber Europa entscheidet auch nicht, was Amerika zu machen haben. Und wir sollen nur sehen, wo wir auch was Gemeinsames Besseres machen können. Ich bin der Überzeugung, dass jetzt mit den Tariffs am Ende des Tages der amerikanische Mittelschichtbürger es bezahlen wird. Und der hat gestimmt für Trump, indem er geglaubt hat, dass er die Inflation besiegen wird. Und das wird Gegenteil. Es wird Inflation in Amerika kommen. Also ich bin bestimmt kein Nobelpreis in der Wirtschaft. Aber wenn jeder Tariffs bekommt, dann wird nachher der Konsument diese Tariffs bezahlen. Und das ist nicht im Sinne weder von uns noch von den Amerikanischen. Also, aber ich hoffe, dass wir gemeinsam Nenner finden und dass wir auch sehen, dass es noch Gemeinsamkeiten gibt. Und das wäre meine Hoffnung.
Inwiefern sind die USA noch ein vertrauenswürdiger Verbündeter, nachdem wir jetzt in diesen Signal Leaks der US-Regierung durchaus respektlose Kommentare gegenüber den Europäern gelesen haben?
Wir sehen, dass nichts garantiert ist und dass das, was wir geglaubt haben, dass wir blind vertrauen können, nicht da ist. Wir müssen pragmatisch sein. Wir sehen, dass mögliche Positionen ändern können. Aber das, was heute richtig ist, kann morgen wieder falsch sein. Das muss man auch wissen. Und ich glaube, dass wir einfach pragmatisch gehen müssen. Ich habe es einmal in Polen gesagt, wenn wir zu schwach sind, werden wir gefressen. Und wenn wir nicht diskutieren, dann werden wir getötet. Also am liebsten ist es schon Stärke zu zeigen, aber Stärke heißt nicht, keine Kompromisse zu suchen. Aber man muss schon, wir sind doch auch nicht die Blöde in der Geschichte ist, wenn wir Strafen, weil es sind doch Strafen, es sind keine Tariffs, es sind Strafen, die man bezahlen soll, dann soll man nicht nur zugucken, aber man muss auch reagieren. Und das, was ich schade finde, ist, dass nachher nur der amerikanische und der europäische Konsument diesen Ärger bezahlen muss, weil das heißt, dass alles steigt und auch die Wirtschaftsprognosen für Amerika. Also es sind dann vielleicht jetzt Betriebe, die in Europa sind oder in China sind, die dann in Europa bauen müssen. Aber wenn es dann nachher amerikanische Betriebe gibt, die dann in Europa bauen müssen, damit sie den Stempel Made in USA oder Made in Europe bekommen, um dann keine Tariffs zu bekommen, bringt keinem was.
Bei Handelsfragen ist Europa vielleicht, hat den USA noch was entgegenzusetzen, aber im militärischen ist Europa ja sehr abhängig von den USA. Was hat Europa da überhaupt für ein...
Wir sollen nicht abhängig sein. Wir sind immer abhängig bei allem. Wir haben es gesehen beim russischen Gas, wir haben es gesehen bei der Covid-Situation. Wir sind immer abhängig. Ich glaube, Europa muss man auch einmal sich bewusst sein, dass wir auch selbst abhängig sein müssen. Wir können nicht immer auf die anderen zählen. Es ist wie ein Paar. Es gibt auch Scheidungen. Auch wenn es bei der Flitterwoche immer alles gut geht, bei der Hochzeit alles gut geht, gibt es auch Momente, wo es nicht so gut geht. Und dann ist schon wichtig, dass jeder auch seine Zukunft aufgebaut hat. Und ich will jetzt nicht sagen, dass ich dass es Scheidung kommen soll. Aber es gibt im Moment Konfliktpotenzial. Und dann muss man auch als Europäische Union nicht nur mit dem Finger im Mund da sein, aber auch sehen, wie wir Energie, wie wir wirtschaftlich, wie wir militärisch, wir haben einen gemeinsamen Feind, das ist Russland. Und wir sollen nicht die Geschichte frisch schreiben. Es ist die Ukraine, die Russland angegriffen hat. Es ist Russland, die Ukraine angegriffen haben. Und wir haben heute eine gemeinsame Gefahr in Europa und auch weltweit. Das ist Russland. Und das muss sogar ein kleines Kind verstehen können. Tschüss.
Good morning. From Norway side, I would like to say that as the founding father of this great alliance, we really care about its health and its togetherness in its ability to deliver. Our main message here today is that Russia is and will remain the defining threat for the alliance against the European and the North American members of the alliance, and we need to prepare not only for how to deal with the next stretch of the war on Ukraine, but also on what happens afterwards. And Russia management is very important for the alliance at this time and in the coming years. I was recently in Kharkiv in eastern Ukraine, very close to the front, a city under daily attack, and it was yet another reminder of the resilience and the stamina of the Ukrainian people, of its population, of its government. They need all the support they can get. And as we move into a situation where there can be conversations on ceasefire and maybe even on peace, it is adamant for all of us that this will be a peace that is just for Ukraine in alliance with key international principles, and that it can be a lasting peace that we can be able to guarantee, so that we will not just see a pause in the fighting. So that's my first message. My second of three messages is that it's heartening to see that the Europeans in NATO are now showing a stronger will than I would say ever before in strengthening their defense base, investments in defense, procurement, building a strong European defense base. The cooperation with the European Union is critically important. Norway has recently entered into a strategic partnership with the European Union, not because we will find our collective defense there, because that firmly and resoundly rests in NATO, but because we need to get our act together and be more efficient in our production, innovation and procurement in Europe. So build a strong European defense base is part of the answer. And my third message is that this is not a meeting about trade. There are many issues to be discussed in other forums, but it shall be remembered, and it must be remembered, that it is important now to preserve allied unity. It's important to understand that we grow faster and better together, that if we want to build resources for a stronger defense, we need to have economic growth, and protectionism will not do us any good. And the founding fathers of this alliance in 1949, they recognized that in Article 2 of the NATO treaty, the North Atlantic Treaty, where it says that we should foster good economic collaboration and refrain from using economic coercive measures against each other. And that's an important part of the treaty, which I think it's good to remind us all about in these very days. So I look forward to a meeting. I look forward to working with Marco Rubio and the representatives of the new American administration. It will be very interesting to hear the report on how the pre-talks are going on in Saudi Arabia and what we can do as an alliance and as individual members in order to support the path to peace in Ukraine, but also how to manage our main defining threat in the future. Thank you.
Like watching your neighbor and ally Denmark being bullied over territory because of resources. I mean, let's be frank, you're a Nordic country with lots of attractive financial resources as well. What's it like for you to watch that happen?
So Norway has, together with all the Nordic countries and the European Union, also been very clear in putting our support behind the Kingdom of Denmark. The Kingdom of Denmark consists of Denmark as such, the Faroe Islands and Greenland, and whatever issue they have internally to the Kingdom of Denmark is up to them and not up to anybody else. And we support sovereign integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark, and this is also one of the principles on which this alliance is formed. We recognize that the U.S. government has been clear in saying that they stand by NATO, they stand by Article 5, and this is critically important. We believe it is important for Europeans and North Americans alike to have this alliance, and particularly in a world where we see authoritarian powers rising elsewhere, when we see new geopolitical tensions growing, we need to continue to invest in the very important and hard-won insight that was shaped in the late 40s after the catastrophe of the Second World War and the mismanagement of the 1930s, that we are much stronger together than each on our own. And this will be very much also our commitment to continue building this alliance, and I hope that will be shared on both sides of the Atlantic.
Do you think it's justified to have a higher defense budget for European allies because they have some catching up to do, or should it be the same for the US and its allies?
We will have discussions now in the coming days, weeks and months up to the summit. And this will also be about our shared commitment to spend more, but also to spend more smartly. I have, in the one of my previous capacities, it was Minister of Defense, and I know that defense money is easy to spend, but it is really important to make sure you spend them smartly, for instance, on having fewer systems, larger series of systems, of vehicles and ships and planes and so on, and that we also have the critical enablers. So it's both about how much we spend and also how we spend them smartly and spend them together, which again takes me back to the close European cooperation on building a stronger defense base. And I'm not commenting on the numbers because these are things we will be discussing inside.
Minister, with all the turbulence, is Norway thinking about joining the EU?
Norway is the most connected non-member, and that is our view, but also the European Commission's view. We have a European Economic Agreement, and we have 100 other connections to the EU and work closely with them. What is most important for us is that the EU succeeds in building, in maintaining the values and principles that is embedded in the treaties, but also increasing its competitiveness, and we will contribute to that. And then people are discussing these questions, but right now this is the focus of the government. Thank you.
Good morning from Slovenia. I will come there also, yes. Very good morning. I'm looking forward to today's discussion with our allies and also with Secretary of State, Mr. Rubio. It will be the first opportunity that we are sitting together at the table. So we have to prepare well for our June summit in Hague. I'm also looking forward that we will discuss with our Indo-Pacific partners. We have a lot of common challenges, Euro-Atlantic partnership and the security challenges that we are all faced. When it comes to Ukraine, I wish to repeat that we are supporting all the efforts for a ceasefire, for a permanent, just and lasting peace for Ukraine based on international law and the UN Charter. And this is even more important for Armenia as a non-permanent member state in the Security Council. I also would like to stress that discussing with our partners, meaning that we wish to discuss about our common challenges, our security, our deterrence, and what more we can do together. I will also focus on the Western Balkan, which is our direct neighborhood. We are following the developments in Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, the elections in Kosovo, and we need to be engaged in this part of the region. So looking forward to today's discussion, also that we have a strong and most important partner with the European Union that will be at the table with Kaja Kallas, and Ukraine that has a very privileged partnership with the NATO-Ukraine Council that we will meet tonight also with the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Sibiha. Thank you. Dobar dan. Po slovensko?
Ja.
Ja, lepo pozdravljeni. Danes bo prva priložnost, da sedimo skupaj vse zaveznice z novim državnim sekretarjem oziroma sekretarjem Rubijem za mizo, da se pogovarjamo o skupnih izzivih in kaj narediti kot zavezništvo v tem, da krepimo našo skupno varnost, našo skupno odpornost. Slovenija se zaveda, da bomo morali narediti več. Pogajanja o samih številkah se še niso začela, je pa seveda smiselno govoriti o tem, kam vse bomo namenjali naše vse napore za krepitev varnosti naše Slovenije.
Tako da danes se veselim predvsem slišati tudi stališča ameriškega državnega sekretarja Rubija, predvsem pa, da se bomo pogovarjali skupaj o varnostnih izzivih, ko gre s partnerji Indo-Pacifika, ko gre z ukrajinskim zunanjim ministrom. Tu lahko ponovim stališče Slovenije. Podpiramo vsa prizadevanja za premirje, ki bo trajno in pa seveda za mir v Ukrajini. Pravičen, trajen mir v Ukrajini, ki bo temeljil na načelih ustanovne listine Združenih narodov, mednarodnega prava, tudi zato, ker smo v varnostnem svetu Združenih narodov. Tako da z indo-pacifiškimi partnerji zagotovo bomo govorili ne o sami varnosti, ampak tudi o hibridnih grožnjah, dezinformacijah, o naših skupnih izzivih, ki jih imamo in kako krepiti tudi obrambno industrijo. In ko govorimo o obrambni industriji, mislim tudi na znanost, inovacije, raziskave. Dotaknila se bom zagotovo tudi Zahodnega Balkana, dogajanja v Beogradu, dogajanja v Bosni in Hercegovini, volitve na Kosovu. To je pomembno tudi za našo neposredno soseščino in varnost. Tako da razprave danes in jutri bodo zagotovo izjemno dinamične. Tudi naša najstrateško pomembnejša Evropska unija bo za mizo skupaj s Kajo Kallas in pa ukrajinski zunanji minister se nam bo zvečer pridružil na NATO Ukrajina svetu, ki pa je pravzaprav najbolj privilegiran del odnosov, ki ga ima Ukrajina z zaveznicami.
Zveza NATO za samo enotnost znotraj zavezništva.
Napoved Trumpa je zagotovo hud udarec, ki bo imel izjemne posledice na celotno svetovno gospodarstvo. Tudi Slovenija mora zdaj temeljito analizirati, kaj to pomeni za slovensko gospodarstvo, predvsem, da zaščitimo naša podjetja, to je interes. Vem, da bodo zasedali trgovinski ministri v kratkem 7. aprila in potem bo tudi skupna pozicija Evropske unije, ampak nikoli v preteklosti se takšne napovedi, ki lahko vodijo v trgovinske vojne, niso za gospodarstvo dobro končale. Tako da upam, da bomo lahko v dvostranskih pogajanjih z ameriško administracijo dosegli kakršnekoli izjeme, ki bodo predvsem zaščitile slovenska podjetja in gospodarstvo.
EU odzove na te carine, zakaj se bo Slovenija zavzela v teh pogovorih o odzivu?
Predsednica Evropske komisije se je zgodaj zjutraj že odzvala zelo močno, ostro izjavo, da je to hud udarec za gospodarstvo celotno, svetovno, evropsko, ameriško, da bo imelo to resne posledice in da se bo Evropska unija odzvala s protiukrepi. Kakšni bodo te protiukrepi, težko zdaj napovedujem, ker bodo najprej zasedali trgovinski ministri in tam do 9. aprila nekje naj bi tudi z vsemi analizami se odzvala Evropska komisija. Seveda pa je prva reakcija tudi ta, da si vsi želimo najprej še pogajanj in priti do kakšne bolj ugodne rešitve, tako bilateralno kot na evropski ravni. Jaz upam, da je to samo zdaj neka tista prva poteza, ki jo bo mogoče v nadaljnih dneh in tednih omiliti.
Glede Ukrajine me še zanima, pravite, Slovenija podpira še naprej. Bo kakšno konkretne svežnje dala Slovenija Ukrajini in pa ali bo prihodnji teden, čeprav uradno menda nismo v koaliciji voljnih, Slovenija sodelovala tudi na srečanju te tako imenovane koalicije voljnih tukaj na sedežu NATO?
Zdaj, predsednik vlade je sodeloval na srečanju najbolj številčnem v Parizu, ki je bila pravzaprav tudi koalicija teh voljnih držav, pravzaprav države, ki se pogajajo o tem, kako priti do trajnega in pravičnega miru v Ukrajini. Predvsem si Evropska unija in evropske države zdaj prizadevamo biti za pogajalsko mizo, ko bo prišlo do pogajanj in zagotoviti trajni in pravičen mir, ki bo temeljil na ustanovni listini in pa mednarodnem pravu. Vsi želimo miru v Ukrajini. Slovenija zagotovo tako kot Ukrajina, mi smo dali svoje jamstva in zagotovila Ukrajini, da ji stojimo ob strani in da bomo stali ob strani, da je tu treba jasno ločiti, kdo je agresor in kdo je žrtev v tej vojni. Tako da z našega vidika si bo Slovenija prizadevala vse, kar je v naši moči, da imamo jasen načrt za mir, ki bo zagotovil tudi varnost ne nazadnje Ukrajincev, ampak tudi v Evropi.
Je potem Slovenija del te koalicije voljnih ali ne?
Zdaj, če se pogovarjamo o tem, kako priti do premirja in miru, zagotovo bomo ves čas v pogovorih, ker je to ne nazadnje tudi želja Evrope, da bo sedela za pogajalsko mizo in Slovenija je del te Evrope. Če se pogovarjamo o vojaški navzočnosti na tleh Ukrajine pod danimi okoliščinami, kot so zdaj, to za Slovenijo ni sprejemljivo. Mi se pogovarjamo o tem, da bi razmislili o takšni možnosti, če bi bilo z mandatom Organizacije Združenih narodov OVSE in tu raziskujemo, kakšne bojo te opcije v nadaljevanju, vendar je to še vse stvar pogovorov. Tako da si vsekakor želimo in bomo za mizo, ko gre za vzpostavljanje miru v Ukrajini.
Zapadni Balkan, kako posmatrate aktualna dešavanja v Bosni in Hercegovini? Aleksandar Crkvenjaš, RTRS.
Slovenija spremlja razmere v Srbiji, v Bosni in Hercegovini, na Kosovu. Tudi na to mislim opozoriti na zasedanju zavezništva. Mi potrebujemo močne države na Balkanu, ki bodo nadaljevale svojo pot proti Evropski uniji, torej izpolnjevanje vseh tistih ključnih, nujnih reform. To pričakujemo tudi ne nazadnje od voditeljev v regiji. Za Slovenijo je pomembna evropska perspektiva držav, mir, varnost, stabilnost naše skupne regije jugovzhodne Evrope. Tako da si bomo prizadevali vse, da pomagamo tako Bosni in Hercegovini kot drugim državam v regiji, da peljejo tiste nujne procese reform, ki so ne nazadnje nujne za ljudi, za blagostanje ljudi, za varnost v regiji.
Do you think the actual situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina is a political or security issue?
Allow me to say that we are following very closely the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, also with a concern. We need to see the country that is a stable country, the leadership that is committed to the European forums. You know well that Slovenia was a strong promoter for the opening of the accession talks with Bosnia and Herzegovina, and that we are offering all our support to the reforms, and we do want to see that Bosnia and Herzegovina stays on the European path and stays as a one country without tensions, because we are living in times where we need really to see peace and stability and strong leaderships that are committed to the security and well-being of their citizens.
Ministrica, je lahko tukaj vloga NATO, k čemu boste danes pozvali konkretno na zasedanju?
Na zasedanju bomo danes predvsem govorili o pripravah na vrh junijski, ki bo v Hagu, Zahodnega Balkana. Zdaj, pred kratkim je Severnoatlantski svet obiskal KFOR. Mi ves čas opozarjamo, da mora biti ta navzočnost in zavedanje nad možnostjo nasilja, incidentov, nevarnosti v sami regiji, da je navzočnost tudi zavezništva tu pomembna. Mi imamo države, ki so države Zveze NATO, tako da sam razvoj razmer v Srbiji, v Bosni in Hercegovini, na Kosovu, kjer je veliko politične nestabilnosti, je nekaj, česar ne smemo zanemariti. In tudi Zveza NATO mora to s pozornostjo spremljati, tako da me veseli, da je sam Severnoatlantski svet res obiskal KFOR in se zaveda, da so v naši regiji jugovzhodne Evrope napetosti izjemno močne in prisotne.
Mogoče samo še vprašanje glede dvigovanja stroškov izdatkov za obrambo. Omenili ste, da bo treba tudi Slovenija to okrepiti. Dokdaj vi pričakujete, da bi recimo Slovenija dosegla vsaj 2%, ker zdaj pritisk je vedno večji?
Zdaj v Sloveniji razprave o tem potekajo, pričakujemo tudi en izdelan načrt v kratkem, verjetno v mesecu aprilu, od tistih nosilnih akterjev države, Ministrstva za obrambo, tudi v sodelovanju s kabinetom predsednika vlade in ostalimi relevantnimi resorji. Zavedamo se, da bo Slovenija morala narediti več, tudi to, da bomo mogli doseči 2% bruto domačega proizvoda v čim krajšem času. Predvsem pa bo tu pomembna tudi razprava, kaj bomo namenjali ta sredstva. Zdaj v Sloveniji vlada ali pa v Evropi je občutek neke, bi rekla, ali histerije ali ustvarjanja nekega strahu. Mislim, da ni razlogov za to. Mi govorimo o tem, kako okrepiti svojo varnost, kako okrepiti varnost, ki ni samo obrambna varnost, gre ne nazadnje tudi za kakovost življenja ljudi. In ko govorimo o obrambnih izdatkih, če govorimo o doseganju 2% BDP-ja ali željah, ki jih nakazujejo ameriška stran danes, da bi ta odstotek moral biti še večji, vendar pogajanja se še niso začela. Se bomo morali zelo intenzivno pogajati, da to ne gre na račun socialne države. Torej, kam bomo vlagali denar in kako ga bomo nabrali, bodo kar resne razprave v Sloveniji. Ne želim jih prejudicirati, vem, da moramo narediti več, ampak te razprave bodo potekale doma, bodo šle tudi skozi vlado, ko bodo načrti na mizi in tudi skozi državni zbor.
Slovenia is a very good friend of Georgia, but how do you estimate this dramatic backsliding of democracy and situation with human rights and adaptation of new repressive legislation? What do you think?
I just wish to say that we were strongly supporting Georgia democracy, the freedom of media, the European path of the country. So we are following with serious concerns, and I do hope, I was myself years ago a rapporteur for visa liberalization for Georgia, and at that time this was one of the most tangible things and most when people really felt European at their hearts. So I do hope that we will see that Georgia in the years to come and that we will play a supportive role to it. Sorry, I have...
Het is gewoon van belang dat we daar stevig als Europeanen een stevig antwoord op die tarieven gaan geven. Dat is ook echt op het Europese dek ligt dat. Want we hebben dus ook echt een gemeenschappelijke verantwoordelijkheid van Europa om hiermee om te gaan. En daar zal Europa zich stevig in verweren en dat weten de Amerikanen ook.
Hoe kijkt u ernaar dat op dat lijstje met al die landen in de wereld Rusland er niet op staat?
Nou, de handel tussen de VS en Rusland is denk ik heel erg beperkt. Ik betreur het dat er echt stevige tarieven op import vanuit Europa en de rest van de wereld staat. En daar gaan we als EU gaan we daar een robuust antwoord op geven.
Maar het is toch vreemd dat Aruba, Sint Maarten er wel op staan en Rusland niet?
Er staan andere worden minder geraakt dan het Nederlandse deel van het Koninkrijk. Waar het om gaat is dat je ziet dat de Trump-administratie, de Trump-regering echt een andere koers kiest als het gaat over wereldhandel. Vrijhandel is bepaald niet hun uitgangspunt. Zij menen dat hoe de wereldhandel op dit moment in elkaar zit, dat zich dat tegen hun belangen keert. En nemen rauwe maatregelen om dat op te schudden. Maar daar gaan we als Europa ook gezamenlijk in een stevige respons in geven.
Tot slot, vandaag is bekend geworden dat Hongarije uit het ICC stapt. Nederland is gastland. Wat is uw reactie erop?
Ja, ik betreur dat. Ik vind het internationaal strafhof is een belangrijke instelling. En voor Nederland als gastland komen daar ook verantwoordelijkheden en verplichtingen mee. En een van die verantwoordelijkheden is dat wij het betreuren dat Hongarije deze stap zet. Ik begrijp dat het proces om dan daadwerkelijk het strafhof te verlaten, dat ongeveer een jaar duurt. En tot die tijd zal Hongarije sowieso moeten voldoen aan de verplichtingen die daarbij horen.
Denkt u dat dit een opmaat is naar meer? Dat er meer landen zullen volgen?
Kijk, we leven nu in een wereld vol onrust, oorlog en onzekerheid, waarbij ook de internationale instellingen niet altijd even populair zijn bij iedere regering. Wat Nederland betreft, wij zien belang bij die multilaterale ordening, bij die internationale rechtsorde. En dat blijven we ook zien. Wij zien daar een breder belang bij en ook bij het handhaven daarvan.
What we could expect today from the Council, EU, or NATO, Ukraine? What decisions we could expect from that?
I don't expect new, very specific decisions on that today, but of course this will be an important part of the discussions. So I'm very much looking forward also to the dinner that we'll be having in presence also of the Ukrainian foreign minister.
And Marco Rubio, do you expect that he will bring something to the table at this council?
I look forward to meeting him here, and I look forward to discussing matters with him here. I believe NATO is very important, not only for European allies and Canada, but also in the interest of the United States. European stability and European security is very important, I believe, also for the US in the end.
Is the US still a reliable partner? Very disrespectful comments from the US administration in a leaked signal chat. How trustworthy, how reliable are the United States still as an ally?
As the Netherlands is concerned, we believe that the US is an important ally. The US is a very important partner, both regarding European security and also the prosperity of Europe.
the US within the alliance? Because if I understand correctly, Europe is still reliant on the US. So do we have to do anything they want now?
NATO stands as a robust political military alliance, including Article 5. That is clear. That has clearly been communicated at all levels by the US to us too. At the same time, what we see, of course, is that the US expects European allies to take more responsibility for their own security and for their own environment. That means that European allies, European NATO countries, rapidly have to strengthen the European pillar of NATO and have to increase their defense spending. Our defense spending in the Netherlands is at this moment just above 2%, but we really expect that that in The Hague at the NATO summit in June, that we'll see an investment pledge that will be significantly higher. Yeah, thank you.
Minister, one last question, if it's possible. About Georgia. Yesterday, Georgian Dream adopted the repressive legislation. You know about this, and so how do you? One second. So how do you estimate this dramatic backsliding of Georgia now?
I believe that it is very concerning that there's such a backsliding taking place in Georgia. You've seen the declaration by the EU High Representative, Mrs. Kallas, and the European Commissioner for EU Enlargement, Mrs. Kos, and also from the Netherlands as a key EU member state. We fully stand behind that. We're very concerned about the developments in Georgia, also because we see that such a large part of the Georgian population is pro-European, wants to strive towards this European horizon, and we want to encourage them to stand, to continue that stand.
Which measures can be used? Very quickly, just.
I'm here to NATO at the NATO ministerial meeting. This is not the opportunity to discuss such measures, but you've seen that as EU we've also taken steps regarding, for example, the visa requirement for Georgian diplomats. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
It's okay. C'est bon.
asociado, libremente asociado o no.
Go first to the Spanish press. Acudimos a esta ministra.
Hello, good morning. I have a few points to make. Thank you very much for your...
En los últimos meses, en cualquier momento.
The ministry is beginning its important milestone in our security. I will be informing ministers about a few things. First of all, about the Czech initiative. The big thing is that we have been able to secure financing so that this initiative now have enough resources to provide ammunition on a monthly basis to Ukraine till September. It's thanks to contribution by Canada, Norway, the Netherlands and Denmark. I would like to repeat that this initiative decreased the efficiency of Russian artillery by 500%. We have decreased the ratio from 1 to 10 to 1 to 2, and it's very important, and I would like to really thanks to all partners who contribute to this initiative, and of course we will be looking for more resources put it into that. Last time I spoke there before the NATO Minister, I said that in year 2024 it was 100 acts of sabotages, including physical acts, cybersecurity acts, or information warfare against Europe by the Russian Federation. We have made a new number, it's 120 for year 2024, and we have registered 30 such actions against Europe for the first quarter of year 25. And also I would like to mention that yesterday it was the Czech government which decided that we are putting on a national Czech sanction list 2 individuals. One of them is GRU officer, Mr. Officer who was basically instructing citizen living in Czechia, Belarusian citizen, and she's also on a sanction list, and she was doing different kind of information operations inside the Czech Republic, and she was ruled to leave Czechia in 30 days. So I'm open to question. Thank you very much.
A reliable partner for NATO.
Sorry.
Is the US still a reliable ally?
Yes.
What will be your message to Secretary of State Rubio?
I will be addressing all ministers, and definitely I'm looking forward to greet with him. Yeah.
Could you explain how your initiative with ammunition works with Kallas initiative about 2 million ammunition shells for Ukraine?
So the Czech Republic delivered, the Czech Republic's industry delivered 1.5 million rounds of ammunition to Ukraine last year. 500,000 of that was large caliber ammunition, or 155 millimeters, 152 millimeters. So I think it's fully working in full line. You know, we need to deliver this material to Ukraine so it can defend against Putin's war of imperial conquest.
Yes, but these 2 million.
Sorry.
On the US.
Again?
Do you think that the alliance can trust that the US would stand by the alliance, for example, if Article 5 was activated?
I have never ever heard anything about Article 5 which would concern me from the American side, so I trust them, yeah.
You just said that the US will still be a reliable ally, but we have seen nevertheless recently leaks from a signal chat with very disrespectful comments about Europeans from the US administration. So can you explain at least why you still believe that the US are reliable and even trustworthy?
Because they have never ever said anything against NATO commitments. That's what I am building up my faith. Of course, I read the political situation, I read the statement, but we need to increase our military spending. I think the situation calls for it.
Can European countries increase their military spending, though, while the US puts all these extra tariffs on, potentially hurting the European
My
economy?
government decided that we will increase military expenditures up to 3% of GDP till 2030. We can do it. It's not easy, but we have to do it. Not if, but we have to.
Because the US requested from the Europe?
Because Russia is trying to destroy us. Okay, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Hi. Good morning. Good to be here again. I look forward to meeting my colleagues, and I'm glad that our colleague from Ukraine, Andriy Sybiha, will be joining us to give us an update on the situation on the ground. And support to Ukraine is crucial at this moment, as Sweden just delivered its 19th military support package, which is our biggest so far, and I urge my colleagues to do even more. It is about our common security. I also look forward to the discussion on increased target on defense spending. Sweden has doubled its defense spending in 4 years, and we're ready to do a lot more. And finally, I look forward to the meeting also with the Indo-Pacific countries. I believe that our security is becoming more and more interlinked, and I think that the clearest example of this is that we have the presence of North Korean troops also in Russia. Thank you very much. Excuse me?
Is the US still a reliable partner?
Yes, US is a very reliable partner. I have a very good discussion with my colleague Marco Rubio, and he very much appreciates what Sweden is doing on defense spending, and of course expects Europe to do more, and I think that is the only way to act at this moment. But they have been very clear to that commitment to NATO and also Article 5.
What's it like watching your neighbor and ally Denmark being bullied over territory?
Well, of course, we support Denmark in every way, and the future of Denmark and Greenland only belongs to the Danish and the Greenlanders. Thank you. Nej, det har jag kört.
Okej. Men vad bra.
Good morning. I'm Baiba Braja, Latvia's foreign minister. It's good to be back at NATO. And today we have quite a tough agenda, which will be continued. The main issue for us is obviously strengthening NATO, strengthening transatlantic bond, making sure that deterrence defense of NATO is as viable as it has been for 76, 77 years. Tomorrow is NATO's birthday, so a big day, I think, for all of us. For NATO, it's pretty straightforward. The KPI of success is keeping peace and security that NATO has been able to keep for 76 years among allied nations, and for the protection of 1 billion citizens. We are stronger than ever. Sweden and Finland has been fully integrated, both in military terms, in NATO, 32 allies strongly together. US commitment unshakable. I look forward seeing Secretary Rubio again. We were in Washington last week for a serious conversation. We'll continue it here. Support to Ukraine, to self-defense of Ukraine, is a second priority for us. So we look forward discussing with Minister Sybiha how we can best support Ukraine's legitimate self-defense. And of course, Indo-Pacific partners are as important as ever for all of us, because the challenges to global security don't limit themselves to the US or Europe. It's not just Euro-Atlantic security. We are all connected. We see it in the war in Ukraine, but we see it in cyberspace. We see it in coercive behavior by China in the Indo-Pacific. So all those challenges to us as states, but also to our citizens, are important. But also they are prominently on the minds of our citizens, so they need to be addressed. China, of course, is a systemic challenge, while Russia is the most direct and significant threat to Euro-Atlantic security. So terrorism as important to our citizens. So all those issues will be covered in these meetings.
We have seen disrespectful.
Sorry.
We have seen disrespectful comments about European allies made by US officials in a leaked signal chat. Why do you still believe the United States are a reliable and trustworthy ally?
Because they are. I mean, we all use sometimes rhetoric that not necessarily reflects the actuality of relationships that we have. Having friends for America is as important as for Europeans having strong friends and having those relationships. In Latvia, we are pretty straightforward. We spent currently 3.7% of GDP for defense. We spent on top of that, about 1% for supporting Ukraine. Quarter of that is military assistance. But we also invest a lot of resources in internal security, which is another big part, and strengthening the eastern border of NATO and the EU. We do that because we take security seriously. And of course, when we see that others don't, there are countries that don't even reach 2%, we ask, we feel we are paying also for your security. That's not okay. So we actually support US calls for more defense spending from those European allies that don't step up.
Friends, but there's a war like at the border of Europe, and the US wants Europe to like take care of their own security and also about the peacekeeping in Ukraine all by itself. So how does that feel? Like doesn't like the US let you alone there?
It's much more complicated than that. So I mean, I understand your comments, but it's more nuanced than that. The interest of keeping peace and security, it's a common interest. There is no difference between the US and Europeans or Canadians and Europeans that peace for the whole Euro-Atlantic area is extremely important. And throughout NATO's history, we have seen different stages of how we have responded to various situations. Today, we don't have the luxury to decide whether we want to participate in a certain operation or not, because the threat is against Euro-Atlantic security. As you said, the war is in Europe. So quite clearly, Europeans need to step up, maintaining very close transatlantic bonds, understanding US assessments, where China features much more prominently than in European assessments. So that is a reality, and we have always been able to cover those differences. So there are differences of opinion. It's about how we manage them, and we have always been able to manage them. So we'll be able to manage them also this time.
What assurances did you get from Secretary Rubio about the US's future in the alliance?
And it's not only Secretary Rubio. Across the board, it's pretty straightforward that commitment to NATO is unshakable. NATO should become stronger, more lethal, more united. And again, defense spending prominently comes up that there is a requirement to finance the defense plans that we have, finance the force structure, finance capabilities that are indicated in those defense plans that allies are not delivering. So it's not just abstract percentage, it's for concrete defense plans, for concrete capabilities that we all need. Thank you.
Good luck with the live, guys. See you inside.
Good morning, how are you? Please allow me to speak in Greek, and I'm sorry for this. Apologies. Σήμερα έχουμε μια κρίσιμη διάσκεψη των Υπουργών Εξωτερικών του ΝΑΤΟ, σε μια ιδιαίτερα σημαντική συγκυρία για την ανθρωπότητα. Ο πόλεμος στην Ουκρανία εξακολουθεί να έχει βαριές συνέπειες, ένας πόλεμος που δεν αφορά μόνο την περιοχή, αλλά αφορά συνολικά την παγκόσμια σταθερότητα και την αρχιτεκτονική ασφαλείας. Θα πρέπει να υπάρξει άμεση κατάπαυση στην Ουκρανία, η οποία θα διασφαλίζει τη βιωσιμότητα, την εδαφική ακεραιότητα και την κυριαρχία της Ουκρανίας και βεβαίως θα έχει την Ουκρανία ως μέρος της συζήτησης για την επίλυσή του. Ιδιαίτερα σημαντική θα είναι η συζήτηση για την νότια γειτονία, την Βόρεια Αφρική, τη Μέση Ανατολή και την περιοχή του Σαχέλ. Πρόκειται για την πιο ευάλωτη περιοχή σήμερα παγκοσμίως, πλήττεται από πολλαπλές ανθρωπιστικές κρίσεις και πολέμους. Θα πρέπει να διασφαλιστεί η ειρήνη και η ευημερία των λαών, έτσι ώστε να μπορεί η περιοχή να αποκτήσει τη σταθερότητα η οποία είναι αναγκαία για το παγκόσμιο περιβάλλον. Η Ελλάδα έχει ιδιαίτερη ευαισθησία στα ζητήματα τα οποία αφορούν την παράτυπη μετανάστευση και την ελευθερία της ναυσιπλοείας και τα ζητήματα αυτά θα τεθούν από τη χώρα μας στο πλαίσιο της συζήτησης που θα ακολουθήσει. Η συζήτηση επίσης θα επικεντρωθεί στα ζητήματα της περιφερειακής συνεργασίας με τις χώρες του Ινδοειρηνικού. Πρόκειται για μια σημαντική συνεργασία η οποία θα αφορά την κυβερνοασφάλεια, τις υβριδικές απειλές αλλά και όλες τις άλλες απειλές οι οποίες αυτή τη στιγμή πλήττουν την παγκόσμια οικονομία και την παγκόσμια ασφάλεια. Πριν από 69 στις 4 Απριλίου του 1949, σαν αύριο, υπογράφηκε η συνθήκη του Βορειοατλαντικού Συμφώνου. Μαζί με τον Οργανισμό Ηνωμένων Εθνών και την Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση αποτέλεσε στην πραγματικότητα τη βασική δομή πάνω στην οποία οικοδομήθηκε η παγκόσμια αρχιτεκτονική ασφαλείας για δεκαετίες. Είναι εξαιρετικά σημαντικό να διατηρηθεί ο δεσμός αυτός ακέραιος, έτσι ώστε να πορευτούμε από κοινού σε ένα εξαιρετικά σύνθετο περιβάλλον με μεγάλες γεωπολιτικές μεταβολές. Είναι σημαντικό να διατηρήσουμε τόσο τις κοινές μας αξίες, τις κοινές μας παραδοχές σε ό,τι αφορά τα ζητήματα ασφαλείας, αλλά επιπλέον να στηρίξουμε και μια οικονομία η οποία θα είναι ευημερούσα στο παγκόσμιο περιβάλλον. Η επιβολή μονομερών περιορισμών σε ό,τι αφορά την κίνηση εμπορευμάτων δεν κατατείνει στην οικονομική ασφάλεια. Τα όποια προβλήματα τα οποία υπάρχουν σε σχέση με το παγκόσμιο εμπόριο μεταξύ συμμάχων θα πρέπει πρωτίστως να επιλύονται επί τη βάση της αμοιβαίας κατανόησης και του διαλόγου. Η Ελλάδα θα τηρήσει μια δημιουργική στάση, είναι υπέρ της αυτονομίας της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης και υπέρ της διατλαντικής συνεργασίας και θα επιδιώξουμε με κάθε μέσο να συνεργαστούμε ωφέλιμα προς το κοινό καλό και συμφέρον. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ. Thank you.
Oradan geçip geçmeyecekler için bir şey
Bence çıkar bu saatte, daha 20 dakika var.
Sen istersen gruba yaz.
Ümit Bey de yazdı da ben Güven Hanım'a ilk söyledim direkt. Sen de olsun.
Ya da gruba yazalım biz.
İsterseniz siz yazın.
HQ girişi olsun. Tamam.
Ben
Tamam,
Güven
Ümit
Hanım'ı aradım.
yazmışsın.
Alo? Alo? Ha ya Güven Hanım size söylemiştir herhalde de karşılama olacak. Büyük ihtimal yukarıda ona göre hazırlık yaparsınız. Herkese duyurun. Hazırlık yaptık. Tamam. Biz de aşağıda bekliyoruz Ümit Bey'in şeyiyle. Tamam, görüşürüz. Yok zaten.
Yes. Same. They were together.
They were together in Paris. And the ministers coming there. I think there is some push, but
Thank you.
Bonjour à toutes et tous. Bien, face au temps troublé que nous traversons, face au nouveau désordre mondial qui s'installe, plus que jamais, les membres de notre alliance doivent faire preuve d'une solidarité sans faille. Solidarité d'abord vis-à-vis de l'Ukraine, puisqu'aujourd'hui, le seul obstacle à la paix, c'est la Russie. Et ça n'est certainement pas l'Ukraine, puisqu'il y a 3 semaines, les Ukrainiens ont consenti, et c'est un compromis courageux, à accepter la proposition de cessez-le-feu sans condition qui leur était faite par les États-Unis d'Amérique. Et depuis 3 semaines, nous avons vu Vladimir Poutine multiplier les manœuvres dilatoires, poursuivre ses frappes sur les infrastructures énergétiques et poursuivre ses crimes de guerre. Il appartient désormais à la Russie de dire si oui ou non elle souhaite un cessez-le-feu. J'irai même un peu plus loin. La Russie doit aux États-Unis d'Amérique, qui se sont engagés pour parvenir à un cessez-le-feu, une réponse. C'est stop ou encore. Solidarité face à la menace que représente aujourd'hui la Russie et qui est une menace pour l'ensemble des membres de notre alliance, au nord comme au sud et à l'est comme à l'ouest. D'abord parce que la Russie consacre aujourd'hui 10% de sa richesse nationale à son effort de guerre, 40% de son budget national à ses dépenses militaires, et que Vladimir Poutine a annoncé cette semaine une nouvelle conscription de 160 000 soldats, la plus importante depuis 14 ans. Et puis ensuite parce que Vladimir Poutine a choisi délibérément d'installer la menace dans le champ nucléaire, avec une révision de la doctrine, avec un partenariat renforcé avec les puissances proliférantes comme l'Iran ou la Corée du Nord, et puis avec l'utilisation inédite de cette menace comme un moyen d'intimidation au service de sa guerre d'agression russe en Ukraine. Dans ce contexte, les efforts menés par la France et le Royaume-Uni doivent permettre un sursaut dans le soutien à l'Ukraine. Et nous avons annoncé par la voix du président de la République jeudi dernier à Paris, aux côtés du président Zelensky, un nouvel effort de 2 milliards d'euros en soutien à la résistance ukrainienne. La réunion des chefs d'État et de gouvernement conviée par le président de la République à Paris a permis d'aboutir à un accord sur un travail conjoint pour soutenir l'effort américain et préparer les conditions d'une surveillance du cessez-le-feu une fois qu'il aura été trouvé. Et puis au-delà, les membres de cette coalition de puissances volontaires et capables, ont souhaité pour certaines d'entre elles préparer les conditions d'une force de réassurance qui, le moment venu, pourra permettre à ce qu'un accord de paix qui sera conclu entre l'Ukraine et la Russie puisse être véritablement durable. Et ce sera d'ailleurs l'objet du déplacement cette fin de semaine des chefs des armées français et britanniques en Ukraine. L'objectif, c'est bien de parvenir à la fin de cette guerre d'agression et à créer les conditions pour que la souveraineté et l'intégrité territoriale de l'Ukraine soient durablement respectées. J'ajoute d'ailleurs que le respect de l'intégrité territoriale et de la souveraineté vaut pour l'Ukraine comme pour l'ensemble